Hello, good evening. I'm Dr. Thomas, and welcome back to another members-only presentation from the Real History Institute. In today's video, we will be looking at Institute file number P3X671, which investigates a pharaoh from the Old Kingdom in Egypt from the 4th dynasty, Sneferu, and the astounding claim that he built not one, not two, but 3 pyramids during his reign. That would be the pyramid at Meidum, the infamous Bent Pyramid, and the Red Pyramid, the 3rd largest of all the Great Pyramids in Egypt. Sneferu reigned for 24, maybe 30, maybe even 48 years. Historians aren't actually sure and actually changed the timeline of his reign in order to account for the building of all 3 of his pyramids. He reigned around 2600 BC and was actually the first king of the 4th dynasty. We're talking Old Kingdom in Egypt. Now it's the 4th dynasty, it should be noted, that is actually credited with building the Great Pyramids in Egypt. So it's Sneferu's son, grandson, and great-grandson that built the Giza Pyramid complex, and that's the Sphinx, everything on the Giza Plateau. And then Sneferu that built these 3 pyramids before all of that. So we have a short period in time where the 4th dynasty builds these great pyramids, and then not a lot else after that. So the first of Sneferu's pyramids was built at Meidum and would have stood about 301 feet tall. It was once completed and covered in white casing stones, just like all the other pyramids. Unfortunately, it has since collapsed in antiquity. This is thought perhaps due to the fact that its foundations are built on sand, as opposed to on bedrock like the other pyramids. The second of Sneferu's pyramids is the Bent Pyramid, so called because the angle changes from 54 degrees to 43 degrees halfway up. Now the traditional thinking behind this change is that Sneferu's first pyramid collapsed, the pyramid at Meidum, during the construction of the Bent Pyramid. So the architects changed their plans mid-construction, fearing that maybe this one might collapse as well. Archaeologists also believe that this accounts for the squat-looking final pyramid of Sneferu's, the Red Pyramid, which is constructed at a 43-degree angle as opposed to a 54. Now, the Institute has already stated in a previous presentation to its members that it does believe that the 4th dynasty of Egypt inherited these great pyramids of Egypt, that they restored them, maybe bringing them back to their former glory, and took them for their own, maybe for their own tombs or for other purposes. And we do thoroughly believe that this is even more evident when we investigate the 3 pyramids of Sneferu. So to begin with, the total weight of all 3 pyramids is 3.5 million tons. This means that at a conservative 25-year reign as pharaoh, a massive 380 tons of stone were quarried, transported, and placed every single day. We can reduce that to around 213 tons every day if we look at a larger 45-year reign. Now this is also during a time, during Sneferu's reign, that as ruler he fought wars, expanded the territory of the Egyptians, and actually took thousands of slaves. But we're also told by archaeologists and modern historians that slaves didn't build the pyramids, that it was actually a paid workforce that did. So while Sneferu is fighting costly wars, expanding territory, which presumably is not cheap, looking after thousands of slaves, which again has a cost associated to it, he's also paying a paid workforce to shift 380 tons of stone every single day. That doesn't make much sense to the Institute. or to myself. Another question to ponder is the bent pyramid itself and the circumstances behind it. So if the first pyramid at Meidum collapsed, then why not reuse the stone? Why leave the pyramid, presumably now a broken pile of rubble, still intact and with the casing stones still on? Surely it would have been a better use of resources to recycle and reuse the stone, especially if we're off fighting wars and spending money. Very, very strange. So another thing to consider with the bent pyramid is with regards to the changing of the angle midway through construction. Now, if you're building a large structure, what is the reasoning behind finishing it with a massive gaping mistake in it? And not only finishing it with regards to actually erecting the structure itself, but then also going to the trouble to finishing it with these bright white casing stones, some of which you can still see on the pyramid today. Just like the pyramid at Meidum, surely a better use of those resources would have been again to take the stone and reuse it in the construction of another pyramid. Perhaps one where you've now learnt from the mistakes of your first two earlier efforts. Instead, we're expected to believe that a pyramid collapsed during the construction of a second pyramid, and then they decided to change the structure, the architecture of this massive project halfway through. Very, very odd. So as well as these questions, the Institute also has to ask the question about why we are attributing the building of all three of these pyramids to Sneferu. So, quarry and workman marks have been found on the outer casing stones of the Red Pyramid, but only on the outside. Now, the Institute believes that it is far more likely that the reason that we can only find Sneferu's mark on the outer casing stones is due to the fact that he didn't actually build the pyramids, but rather inherited them, claiming them as his own, and then restoring them. This also accounts for the time given to the building of the three pyramids. It is much more likely to have taken him 20 or 30 odd years to restore the pyramids than to have been able to quarry, transport, shape, and then place this 380 tons of stone every single day without pause. We also have to ask if conventional thinking is to be believed, and Sneferu had the pyramids to be built as tombs. How many tombs does one king actually need? It seems as though the rest of his family were actually quite happy to have only have the one pyramid to themselves, but Sneferu was greedy and apparently he wanted three. Lastly, the Institute would like to draw its members' attentions to Sneferu's actual name. Now, one of the possible modern translations of Sneferu is to make beautiful. Now, myself and the Institute firmly believe that we should take Sneferu's name as exactly that, to make beautiful. And that explains what he was doing. Sneferu took three of these great pyramids in Egypt and restored them, making them beautiful as they once were in the past to him, by adorning the sides with bright white limestone casing stones. There is much more to discuss and discover with regards to Sneferu's three pyramids, and in future presentations the Institute will visit some of these. There are secrets in the Red Pyramid. The Bent Pyramid is a fascinating structure. We'll also want to look at the timeline of ancient Egypt, and especially the 4th dynasty, to which some of the most greatest Egyptian wonders are attributed to. The Institute has extensive files open on all of these subjects, as to us it is quite clear that much of what has been attributed to the ancient Egyptians appears to be inherited. But until then, this has been a presentation from the Real History Institute. If you've enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, as it is the best way to support the Institute's ongoing research projects. Until next time, I have been Dr. Thomas, and the Institute thanks its members for their time and wishes them a very pleasant evening.